Hello, everyone. So it's Dave here from Leeds Film Club, and I've decided to start branching out a little bit. And something I've always wanted to do, other than obviously doing the weekly quiz that I do for everybody, is get people on and get chatting to people who have kind of been involved in filmmaking. Maybe they've done short films, things like that, or even actors who've been in quite a fair few things on the big screen. And I'm really pleased to announce that we've got our first ever guest here on Leeds Film Club. He's been a senior First Order officer in Star Wars: The Last Jedi. He's been a Ravager pilot in Guardians of the Galaxy, and who can forget David Brent's foul-mouthed friend Chris Finch in The Office. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Ralph Ineson. Is it Ineson or Ineson?
Ineson, yeah.
Ineson,
no,
yeah.
Right, yeah.
I've always said Ineson, but
good work.
But I was listening to Mark Kermode's review of The Witch the other day, and he said Ineson, and straight away like, oh what? I can't be getting his name wrong.
No, it happens a lot, but because like the only place there are many Inesons is West Yorkshire. People from West Yorkshire tend to get it right, but everybody else gets it wrong.
Oh, that's it. So you were telling me that you've not lived in Yorkshire for a while. Then have you? Did you move down south? And
I moved to London in my kind of early 20s to start acting because it was a bit more London based then. You didn't have the it's like nearly 30 years ago, so you didn't have the internet, you didn't have mobile phones, so things were very much London based then. It was very hard to live up in York as I was living at the time, and work. I was spending a lot of money on train fares coming down to London for auditions. So I made the move when I was about 23, 24.
I suppose there's only so many things that can get recorded at Yorkshire TV, I suppose, down in Leeds.
Yeah, I think nowadays a lot of things have changed with the business because they have self-tapes. So for a lot of projects, you put yourself on tape, you audition yourself. So that's made it open to a lot more people to audition. Before, like I say, you'd have to spend 100 odd quid getting a train down, whatever else that cost just to do an audition that you may or may not get. And so it was a big financial commitment for a lot of people. But now, now the first round of auditions tend to be self-tapes. They can see a lot of people for very little expense. And then if you like that person, then they can bring them in for an interview. Just means that actors don't waste a lot of money going for jobs that they're not really going to get.
Yeah. And how do you find that then? Do you find that that's an easier way for you to kind of do it? Or do you prefer going and just sitting in line with a load of other prospective actors and just trying it that way and like kind of sussing everybody out while you're sat next to them?
Thankfully, I don't do those kind of castings much anymore, luckily. Yeah. Where you are sat in a big room, I used to hate those. Casting for commercials and stuff like that, when you sat in a room with kind of 15 other people who look exactly like you. It's a fairly demoralising experience. But I don't mind the self-tapes at all. I think it's quite a good way to get something over. But especially if you're playing a part that's more involved in the film from start to finish, kind of thing, you'd like to meet the director and discuss it, because you've got a lot more work, a lot more time with them.
Yeah, I suppose you probably get a better feel for kind of what they're wanting from you as well as an actor, more than just being able to just put yourself on a little bit of a tape and send it to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because if you're going to spend a lot of time working together and trusting each other for 2 or 3 months, it's good to have built some kind of relationship before you jump into doing 40 nowadays, 6 days a week.
Yeah, and in terms of like building relationships with directors, then, so when obviously, what's kind of the longest shoot that you've had on any particular film? Because I know I always refer to you as kind of like the hardest working man in Hollywood, because every time I watch a film, you seem to pop up in it and you're in loads of things.
Well, a lot of those bigger American films, a lot of them, because they're made over in the UK, like Star Wars is made at Pinewood. They have every stage at Pinewood booked out for Star Wars. It's that bigger deal. The government have given good tax breaks for big American films coming over here. So that gives a great employment at one level of the industry, one end of the industry for crews. It's brilliant. It's not so great for British actors, but we do get to kind of sweep up a lot of the smaller parts because they don't want to pay the money to bring people over from America. So they kind of cast locally. So yeah, a few of those are like a couple of weird weeks wandering around on Star Wars or Guardians of the Galaxy or something. They're not the most kind of artistically satisfying jobs as an actor, but you feel pretty cool when you put the costume on and you've got your own droid and all that kind of shit.
That is pretty cool, because I always wonder, kind of, because I've not seen that side of it. I've seen the side of, because I've been on a few game shows and things like that, so I've kind of seen the filming from that side, but I've never kind of seen the acting world and kind of how things are there. Are there very like long, boring days, or do you kind of find ways to entertain yourselves with other actors?
Yeah, I mean, it depends what you're doing, really. Sometimes you're doing very physical stuff, so any downtime you've got is just trying to recover. And sometimes, like you say, you'll be doing a drawing room scene with 15 people in a country house. And yeah, you just sat around, sat around swapping the stories of theatre darling. Yeah, there's a lot of that. But also nowadays, like everybody's got internet connection all the time. So things have changed on that level, you know. Just hanging around, there's stuff to entertain you in a way there wasn't a few years ago.
Yeah, you're not having to sit around with latest novel just to entertain yourself, sat in a corner quietly.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously, one of the main reasons why I kind of contacted you first to kind of get in touch, you're from Leeds originally, big Leeds United fan.
Yes, I am indeed. Yeah.
So you've been is that a lifelong thing?
Yeah, pretty much. As long as I can remember, I moved out of Leeds when I was a kid to near York with my parents, but all my uncles and cousins all still lived in Leeds. So yeah, we went to see the games with my uncles as a kid, and yeah, been afflicted or blessed ever since, depending on what. So yeah, I've seen some good stuff. I'm not old enough to have seen the rubbish side. I first went in the late '70s. You know, so I remembered some fun times in the '80s, not particularly successful, and obviously winning the league. Yeah, going around Europe as well with the Champions League in 2000 and 2001. Was a lot of fun, so I've had some good times, but obviously, as we all know, a lot of really, really rubbish ones as well.
We've had some terrible times, haven't we?
Yeah,
I think I'm the jinx, I think, because I started supporting them the year after they won the title.
Oh, right.
And then it's just been downhill since there.
Yeah, that was the year that's still record-breaking as the only champions not to win a game away from home.
Ridiculous, isn't it? Absolutely. Trust Leeds to break that kind of record. Although we broke a few last season as well, didn't we?
Yeah.
It's going to be It's going to be interesting to see how this season pans out.
It certainly is. Yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen.
And just going back to film, so obviously you had a small part in the Damned United. How did that come about? Did you get contacted being a Leeds fan, or did you actually have to put yourself forward for that?
Well, I was put forward, but I remember reading the book and loved it. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And so I did say to my agent, you know, if this does get made into a film, let me know if you hear about it, because it's something I'll be interested in. And lo and behold, it did. It got made. And I got an audition for it with Tom Hooper, the director who I'd worked with before. And he's quite a posh fella, not exactly somebody who understands football and football culture particularly. Yeah. So I'd met him before, and he kind of brought me in, and he was kind of, I remember you're a Leeds United fan, aren't you? Yeah. So we had a long chat about it all, and I kind of basically explained to him that it was all lies and it was all rubbish, but it was a great story. But, you know, there was very much another side to it. And he was fascinated. And he had me auditioning for Dave Mackay. Yeah. And, you know, I'm not the world's greatest mimic, but my accents are all right. You know, I've done plenty of accents over the years, and I've done Scottish before. It's been fine. Yeah. Did this audition, and it was the worst Scottish accent you've ever heard in my life. And I kind of knew it, and he knew it. And at the end of it, he kind of looked, and I went, sorry, mate. He went, yeah, I can't give you that. He said, but here's 3 parts. He said, you can do any of these you want. You know, just, hello, are you there? Yeah.
You're back in.
Yeah, there's 3 parts. Do any of these you want, because it'd be nice to have you around. So I did do a day's work at Ellen Road, pretending it to be the tunnel of Wembley. I was being sat in the Peacock car park. And I was sat there waiting. They were doing a scene, Leeds-Liverpool, the Charity Shield thing. I think they were filming that. And I was sat on the steps of my trailer. And Colm Meaney steps out there, and he's looking around for an AD. So I get somebody's attention. So he went, oh, thanks, and introduced himself. And I said, so, how does it feel to play the great man? And he turns around and he goes, oh, I don't know about great man. And I said, all right, let's start that again. Hi, I'm Ralph, lifelong Leeds United fan. How does it feel to play the great man? And he goes, oh, it's an honour. Right on that. Yes, thank you.
And obviously, if anybody who's watching so don't know who he actually played Don Revy in the film.
He played Don Revy, yes.
Yeah, so obviously, as a Leeds fan, it's to be fair, it wasn't a bad. I didn't think it was that bad showing of Don Revy. I didn't think.
No, I think Con Meany's a brilliant actor. He did an amazing job of him. I love the book, so I was kind of disappointed in the film because I thought it took a big element with the kind of internal monologue that Clough has in his head going all the time. Because that was taken out, it made it kind of a bit of a buddy movie with him and Peter Taylor, which was nice. And again, those two are great actors, and they did the characters brilliantly. But I just felt there was a darkness missing to it that you had in the book, which would have been really interesting. A Goodfellas style voiceover. It's not Goodfellas style, but as in that technique.
But with Clough's voice.
But Clough's interior voice, the interior mental voice, which you get in the book, it alternates between his interior mind and reality. So I just thought they missed a bit of a trick with that.
Yeah. I've not read the book, so I'd be interested to pick it up at some point. And,
it's brilliant. Yeah.
So I did enjoy the film, but obviously not reading the book, you kind of only get the one side of the picture. I know you touched on accents there then. So have you found that with because you've got a pretty strong, broad accent that's quite noticeable. Have you found that it's kind of ever influenced roles that you've gone for or anything like that? Or
massively over the years. I mean, I didn't go to drama school, so I didn't kind of classically train. I went to university and studied theatre, but I didn't do the classical training. And I think that when I started acting, I used the fact that I had an accent and all that kind of thing, proactively, as it were. It was very much part of the stick. It helped me get a lot of the kind of work that I got. As you move on, you don't always play characters from the north of England, so
no.
you have to branch out a bit. So yeah, I've been doing a lot more work over the last few years with accents. But yeah, I think that nowadays there's a lot more regional accents on TV, and people move around the country a lot more. So it's not as odd to hear a regional accent just in the pub. I live in London, and it's very rare you hear a London accent. Everybody's from everywhere.
That's very true.
So I think that just having my Yorkshire accent, just I was thinking I did a TV show called The Capture, which is just about to go out in America. And that's the head of Sutton CID, but I don't change my accent from Yorkshire. That doesn't kind of seem weird because people move around in their jobs,
Yeah, but to be fair, in America, they don't know where you're from anyway. If you tell anybody in America you're from England, they just wondered if you know Prince Harry.
Yeah, it was funny when we did The Witch, because the language in that is quite dense.
Yeah.
And because we decided that the characters were from Tadcaster, is what we decided.
Yeah.
And so the accent was a kind of basically a West Yorkshire accent. And when the Jacobean language and the accents went to the American audience, the test audiences, you were really worried about how they'd react as to how much ADR we'd have to do, how much we'd have to replace the dialogue.
Yeah.
But it turned out that because of Game of Thrones, which was really popular and that has lots of northern accents in it, the Americans are a bit more used to it now. So it actually did us a favour.
Like the Americans have just zoned in on the northern accent.
well, I think they understand it more than they understand a lot of other regional accents in the UK.
Yeah, that makes sense. In fact, speaking of The Witch, I rewatched it. I've had it on as background while I've been working today. I only saw it for the first time in October. Absolutely, that is one of my favourite horror films of all time. Absolutely loved it. And it's like when I was just doing a little bit of research about it, it's like I can't believe, like, even Stephen King came out and said that The Witch scares the hell out of him. And what did he say? The quote was, "It scares the hell out of me, and it's a real movie, tense and thought-provoking as well as visceral." How does that feel when you're hearing somebody like Stephen King talking about a film that you're pretty, like, there's only about 4 people in the entire film.
Yeah.
That must feel good when you've got something like Stephen King talking about it in that way.
It gets really surreal because it was so well received. Kind of critically, it won at Sundance Film Festival originally, and then went on to get quite a lot of momentum. And so you kind of know that almost everybody's seen it in the business, the business that you work in. Almost everybody's seen the film, and I got a call when I was doing the press for it in New York. We're doing a press tour, doing interviews, and I got a call to go see Ellen Lewis, who's one of the biggest casting directors in the world. She does Scorsese and one other director, essentially, who called me to go in and meet her for a part. And I went in, and she went, and I'm thinking that she's talking about something I might be able to audition for in the future or something like that. And she said, "Oh, Stephen wants you to play this part," and that was Spielberg. You know,
Ready Player One.
Yeah, because he'd seen The Witch, and then stuff like that. And you think, "Oh my God, Steven Spielberg's actually sat and watched me on the telly." It's quite surreal.
That is surreal to think that he's sat there watching it and, like, he's thought about you and gone, perfect for this role.
It's mad, isn't it?
It is mad. It is.
And then when you're working with him, when you're talking to him, it's insane because you just, for the first kind of day, you can't just help but get lost. Yeah. Your head's just going, "My God, that's Steven Spielberg. He's speaking to me." Yeah. And then he walks away, and you've got no idea what he actually said to you.
It's been a days.
You're kind of hypnotised.
So when you're on set with somebody like Steven Spielberg, because obviously you'll have grown up and everything with such, like, amazing films that he's created, you must sit there and you must be there just thinking, this is just absolutely ludicrous that I'm now being directed by Steven Spielberg. Yeah. And when you're on set, do you get a chance to, with somebody like him, do you get a chance to kind of have much conversation that's kind of not related to him directing you, or is it very professional and precise?
Yeah, I mean, he was a very relaxed guy to work with. He knew exactly what he wanted, and everybody around him. He's surrounded by the best people in the business because everybody wants to work with him. So there's a kind of confidence and a calm that comes with working with someone of that level, is that you know everybody around you is the best at their job. So you're just concentrating on doing your job to the best of your ability, and it's just a joy to see how it all kind of works. And so you do occasionally. I got an amazing moment with him, which was still to do with him directing me, but there was one point where I have to make gun fingers. I don't think it's in the film, but I made gun fingers on Ty Sheridan's head and kind of pretend to blow him away, saying this line, and Steven Spielberg came in and said to me, he said, "What's that line from The Godfather about blowing your brains out on your Ivy League suits?" He said, and I said, "Yeah, I know the line. I think it's Sonny." But we couldn't remember the exact line. And I'm thinking, why on earth is he talking about this? So he gets his assistant, the script supervisor, not assistant, the script supervisor, with this huge iPad, one of these giant ones. And we go, the three of us, to the corner of the stage and look up the scene, watch the scene on YouTube. And then he goes, "Okay, so put that line in." Put that line in the scene that we're doing. I'm like, "Okay."
Whatever you say.
I'm raised in an American accent or anything, but okay. So I do it. And it was amazing to have that kind of little moment. Just kind of sitting and watching The Godfather with Steven Spielberg was pretty cool.
Yeah, I bet it's, things like that must just be so surreal. You just can't. I as a film watcher, it's like I only kind of see these people in interviews and things like that. So to just essentially hang out with Spielberg must be pretty.
Well, I mean, 90% of the time, even though you love them and you love their work, you're kind of working with them, and you've certainly got to put all that stuff aside.
Absolutely.
To do the job as well as you can. But say every now and again, you just can't. And that was, for me, was Michael Caine, Sean Connery, and Steven Spielberg. They're the only three ones who I've kind of like, I just can't concentrate now. It's just
you just want to run up to them and say, "Oh my God, I loved you in this."
You're great.
Yeah, because Yeah, it must be. It must be great. Do you prefer doing the film stuff to the TV stuff? Is it a different? Do you find it such a different process, or are there quite a lot of similarities between?
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities. Film, I find a bit more satisfying because you can kind of almost see the whole thing coming together in a way that TV's a bit more of a factory in a way that you turn it out to a certain amount to a week. So ideally, I'd always like to work on film, but there are a lot of similarities, especially nowadays with digital filming and all of that. The difference between making a film and making TV is not as big as it was.
Yeah, very good. I've got a few. When I told everybody on the Leeds Film Club group that you were that we're going to be doing this for you today, and I just kind of put out there if anyone's got any questions to ask you. So I'm just going to throw a few questions that people have asked, if you don't mind.
Go on then.
So, I mean, a couple of them, funnily enough, I've already covered off, but I just want to give them a call out for asking them. So, Michael Foley had already asked like what it was like doing Damned United, and we'd had somebody had already like Shiraz Ali had asked what it was like working with Steven Spielberg. So, I'm hoping that for them we've already kind of covered that off. Now, Andy Kelly put a comment on just regarding, we've already spoken about The Witch, and he was wanting to know if it was true that every costume and prop on that show was kind of handmade in the way that it would have been in the 17th century. Was it everything as authentic as it looked on film?
Yeah, it was absolutely insane. I mean, there's a million little stories I can tell you as to why it was insane. The windows, one thing that really winds Rob Eggers up is that the windows had to be a third bigger than they would be really on a real Puritan's house of the time, so we could actually get enough light in to use natural light to shoot.
All right.
So to the fact that winds him up is an idea of how close you were. If you look at all the wood that's on the farm, it's all cut by straight saws because the circular saw wasn't invented till 1760. So he didn't want any circular saw marks on any wood anywhere on the farm, so it all had to be cut like that. My stockings were made from the wool from the sheep from the Plymouth plantation, which are the actual sheep that would have been there at the time. The shoes we wore were called single shank shoes, so they're not left or right. You break them into left or right. They didn't have left or right shoes at the time. It's incredibly uncomfortable. Everything was hand stitched, every bit of costume, all the right kind of period cotton wool. It was, there wasn't anything cheated about it. You really felt like you were really in that world.
And I take when you're filming something like that with costumes and things like that, and the authenticity around what's around you, that must help you get into the kind of the role and the character so much easier.
Yeah, I mean that one especially. We were out in a forest in northern Ontario, like 45 minutes from the nearest town. There wasn't any phone reception or anything. We were right in the middle of nowhere, so it was. There was bears coming awake in spring, coming out of hibernation in the woods, stuff like that. It was a weird, kind of scary but quiet place, just like the film.
Yeah. Especially, are you all right around goats?
Yeah, I've still got an irrational hatred for goats.
I don't want to spoil the film for anybody if anybody's not seen it, but that is one of the most terrifying moments that I have ever seen in horror films. It's horrific when it happens.
Yeah, no, it was quite a lot of build-up as well. He was very hard to work with, so to do a lot of pulling him around and yanking him around, and he was heavier than me, so it wasn't an easy
job. So just going back to some of the questions that have been asked, this is probably one that's probably been asked a million times a year. So two people more or less asked the same question here. So we've got Craig Tranter and Mitch Silcock, both want to know, TV related. Can you still throw a copper kettle over at Lamb Pub in Chichester? And did you really throw your shoe over a pub?
Right.
That's obviously from The Office.
Yeah, from The Office. I actually did, when The Office first came out, obviously nearly 20 years ago now, I went on a TV show called The Big Breakfast. Remember The Big Breakfast?
Oh, yeah.
And they got me to throw a shoe over the house, and I did manage it then. Which I was quite proud of. There was quite a lot of pressure on breakfast TV, so I managed it then. And when we were filming The Office, I did get it over the building.
Did it go? Did you do it in one take, straight over, first time?
over one take. Yeah, absolutely. So I can't claim to what happened in the fictional world, but actually in the real world, I did manage to get it over.
Managed to get the show over the. That's absolutely fantastic. Helen Burton Magic, she commented, she's picked up on the fact that you do the voiceover for Salvage Hunters. must be one of her favourite shows. Because I've noticed you've done quite a few voice acting now, and has that always been kind of the Yorkshire accent voice acting, or have you kind of branched out with that? Has it been kind of focused on the fact that you've got this broad accent that you can bring to the role?
No, I mean, I think that advertising-wise, they do these tests, and I think that a Yorkshire accent is generally seen as a fairly trustworthy accent, which is why you get a lot of it in advertising, which is great for me. But no, I don't think it's so much to do. I think it was just after The Office came out, to be honest, I got a lot of voiceover work, a lot of it geared towards playing those kind of characters in voiceovers. But thankfully, I think because I've got an unusual tone to my voice, the work's carried on in all sorts of other ways as well. Yeah, which is
good. Just a couple more. Emma Soul wants to know: is there any genre of film that you've not had the chance to work in that you'd like to give a go?
I don't know. I've just done a cowboy film, which was I've done two in the last 2 years, which are good fun because I like working with horses. So any genres like that. I've done the knights stuff, cowboys, anything else with horses, don't think. I'd like to do a Bond film. I'd like to be a Bond.
It's funny because
that's not really a genre, is it? That's a franchise, isn't it?
True, but the next question that we're going to be asked, this was straight off my mum's messages. Sue Woolen, she wanted to know, first of all, were there any role that you would have liked to have played, and would you like to be the first Yorkshire James Bond?
Right. Yeah, I think that being James Bond might have sailed. I don't think you tend to get cast when you're 15.
How old was Daniel Craig when he got cast?
Be younger than 50. He's not that much older than me, and he's been doing it for years. And I'm only just 50. So he's probably, I think he's probably about 52, 53.
Right.
And obviously looks after himself a lot better than I do. But
don't be shy. I saw you shirt off in which you looked all right.
Yeah, but that took a lot of work. Just
were you lumping logs around like Rocky IV?
No, I just wasn't eating any bread or drinking any beer for a long time. But a Bond. I'd like to be in a Bond film. I think as a Bond baddie, ideally, but more likely a Bond henchman.
Yeah, no, I could see you pull it. I think the voice would get you the villain role.
Yeah,
definitely. Emma Donahue wants to ask, what was your favourite set to work on? She did put between Harry Potter and Game of Thrones because I expect that they're pretty solid, like immersive sets. So I was kind of going to expand that into kind of just sets in general. What's kind of the most fun one to be part of?
I think the two most impressive sets, kind of design-wise, I've worked on would be Diagon Alley on Harry Potter, because that's an amazing set, and what's it called, Nowhere in Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, that was kind of like a Blade Runner style, underground. Backstreets, markets, bazaar, and all these kind of mutants and stuff walking around. That was a pretty impressive set as well.
Have you done any? Because I know that you've got a film coming up called The Green Knight, and I've watched the trailer for that. Is that kind of your first? It looks like it. Did you do any motion capture on that?
No, that's all
physical.
It's all physical. It's all. It's the same people who do the prosthetic makeup for Game of Thrones. Did all my stuff, like the whole head, the hands and everything. It was a 3.5 hour every morning makeup job.
Wow. That must be, is that tiring, or do you quite enjoy that whole process?
I wouldn't say enjoy it, but you find a way to meditate through
it. Just push through. Because can you give like a bit of a synopsis about what The Green Knight's about? Because I know it looks like it's going to be quite a big film that's coming out, but I've not heard much about it.
Well, it's due to premiere at South by Southwest in March, obviously, which got cancelled. So they've pulled, and then be on general release May the 28th, which is about where we are now. But they've shelved it for the moment to release when theatres in the States are open again. It's an adaptation by A24 and David Lowery, who's directed it, of the epic poem Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. It's an Arthurian tale about Arthur's nephew, who accepts a challenge from the Green Knight, who I play. And I challenge anybody to take a swing at me, have whatever you want, and then as long as in 1 year's time I can come back and return the blow.
Wow.
And so yeah, something happens with me and Sir Gawain at the start of the film, which is Dev Patel plays Sir Gawain. He's absolutely brilliant in it. He's amazing. And then we meet up at the end of the film again to resolve.
Don't be spoiling it for us.
Exactly.
To resolve. Really tell,
but it's it looks absolutely amazing. I think it's going to be superb.
It looks very visually mesmerizing. When I watched the trailer earlier on, and it just looked like it's going to be pretty kind of in your face, enjoyable.
Yeah, that'll be great.
And the last question that got asked, and there's absolutely no way I'm ever going to get this out of you, but my sister wanted to know: do you have Chris Pratt's number that she can have?
Bizarrely, he because we met, I did a lot of my scenes with him when I briefly worked on Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And he was a really big Game of Thrones fan, and it wasn't that long after I'd done my stuff on Game of Thrones that I was working with him. So we did sit and chat, and I did get a number, or he did give me a number, because we were going to meet up for something in London, which never happened. But yes, so in my phone there is a number which is probably Chris Pratt's assistant, but I'm afraid no, your sister can't have
it. No, I didn't think she was ever going to get it. I mean, I don't think her boyfriend would be that happy anyway, even if she did have it. Have you got any like ridiculously showbiz phone numbers in your phone that it's just like you just can't believe you've got the phone number? Like you got Steven Spielberg's house number in there?
No, I don't. His home number, no. No, but yeah, there's a few people in there who are kind of, when you flick through with a few mates, you kind of go, oh my God, I forgot that I had their number in there. Yeah, because when you work with people, obviously you set up WhatsApp groups of the people you're working with, which then you don't speak to again. But yeah, whilst you're working, you're always swapping numbers.
I suppose it's like that in any job. Yeah, I move on to a different office job and I don't talk to most of the people I've worked with. Worked for them for 5 years and don't talk to them anymore.
Yeah.
And then you bump into them in the street, you don't even recognise them anymore. Cool. No, well, that's all the questions that I had.
Excellent.
It's been really good talking to you, Ralph. It's a really massive thank you for kind of coming along and doing this for us and just giving us just half an hour of your time just to have a bit of a chat about your career and things you've done. It's been really really useful, and hopefully anybody watching it in his little group will appreciate it as well.
Excellent. Well, good luck with it, and hope you get some interesting people on the others.
Yep, cool. Thank you very much for that.
All right.
I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Speak to you soon. Bye.